So today we're hopefully going to try to get it started, so we'll see how that goes. We've got the wiring harness kind of figured out of where it's going to sit in the engine bay. We've got the radiator in place. Just need to run the last of the coolant lines, which are from the rad to the engine. The fan that came with the kit, the electric fan, didn't fit. It was way too big. It was going to hit the subframe. Luckily we had a mini fan, electric mini fan, and that fits perfectly, so we've got that in place. We figured out our intake, just kind of working out the bends to get the filter to sit in the nicest place possible. And then yeah, a couple other small things, and we should be able to start to figure out the wiring and then hopefully fire it up. So we'll see how that goes, but it's looking awesome. It's looking like a whole car now, so really exciting, super motivating. All right, so let's take a moment and talk about the intake manifold. So we never actually talked about this on how we got it in here. We were originally planning to see if we could actually make it fit with the firewall in place without cutting the intake manifold. It was really, really close with our Skunk2 intake manifold to actually clearing, but unfortunately it wasn't going to clear. I tried shaving it a little bit and it just didn't fit. So what we end up doing is cutting it straight parallel with the mounting face of the intake manifold. And then from there we took the top part of the plenum and we lined it up to see what we had to use to cut it to make it fit. We then cut an angled piece, and then with the 45s that came off of that, those two cuts, we ended up flipping them. So cylinder 1 got cylinder 4's pie cut and then reversed it. So it actually made a separate little arc that went up. And then we had those welded in place. The factory or the kit recommends using silicone 90-degree couplers, which we just don't like the idea of that. Having couplers with hose clamps, just asking for vacuum leaks. It's also not supporting the intake manifold. So in this case, we have them all welded up and it sits perfect. No issues whatsoever. The only thing that came up with it, there's two small things. One, the intake air control valve that sits on top of the intake manifold here. One of the vacuum nipples that comes off the back was actually interfering with the firewall. It wasn't hitting it, but when you put the hose on it, the hose would kink. So I pie sliced that, bent it up at a 45 and re-welded that. So now it sits fine without any issues. The only other thing is that the fuel rail, once you bend up the intake manifold, the fuel rail comes in contact with the intake air temperature sensor. So what we did is we just took that off, made an aluminum block off plate, sealed it off, and then we're going to put the intake air temperature sensor in the intake stream itself here. It just needs to know the temperature of the air going into the engine, so whether it's by the intake manifold or over here, it should be fine. All right, so we have kind of gone through the wiring. We've got it into a really basic setup right now where we figured out where all our power wires are coming from the factory ECU. We didn't have to cut or splice anything. We're using just the harness that came into the engine compartment. So everything's run through fuses and relays and whatnot. So we've got oil in the engine. We're just gonna try to crank it real quick. We've cranked it a little bit. So I'm gonna crank it, get some oil pressure, and then we'll try to fire it up really quick. We've got no coolant in it right now, so we'll just run it for 2 seconds and then turn it off, just to make sure we've got everything plugged in, but exciting.
Sparking out right now. Switch 12 volt source. Coil bit.
That goes to the front. All right.
There we go.
It's alive!
Well done.
Also, it's not quiet. No, it is not. Hey, good job, everyone. Awesome. Oh, let's go for a drive.
I'll make it look pretty.
All right, so we've made a lot of progress with the engine. Essentially, the engine bay now is completely done. We had a bit of an issue at first because of our intake manifold. Now, what we did is we used a Skunk2 intake manifold that we welded and moved up so that it fits along the firewall here. On Skunk2's website, it says it works with the factory GSR throttle body. We bolted it up, fired it up, and it was idling at like 3,000 RPM, and we couldn't find out why. It had to be a vacuum leak. So we went and took the idle air control valve and the air valve underneath the throttle body apart, made sure they were cleaned and working properly. Went around with carb cleaner and sprayed everything, making sure we didn't have any leaks, and still couldn't figure it out. Then I figured out that the throttle body was actually way smaller than the intake manifold, and it was so much smaller, in fact, that air was leaking past it internally, where it was supposed to be diverted off to the intake air control valve, but it was instead going right into the intake manifold, so the air valve had no function. So after looking at it again, I figured out there's no way to adapt the two, so I had to go and buy the Skunk2 throttle body, which is a 70mm throttle body. And after some research, it turns out that Skunk2 has expanded their intake manifolds to 70mm because they want more people to run their throttle body. So if you're doing the swap yourself, you get the Skunk2 intake manifold, you have to get their throttle body as well, otherwise it will never idle properly. So we got their throttle body, bolted it on. The one thing that was kind of annoying with it is that the throttle plate pivots from the other direction compared to the factory. So normally the throttle cable comes from here, but now it comes from this side. So I had to make a mount off of the fuel rail here. I had to get a new throttle cable that was a little bit longer than the one that came factory on the car, and then I loomed it and extended it and figured it all out. So now it works great, idles properly, and we have a bigger throttle body, which should help for power. So that's good, but it just took a little bit of a time. The other thing that we've got going is we've pretty much finished the dash. So if you come inside the car, you can come and take a look. I'll go in here. So this is the back of the dash. We dealt with all the wiring in here, tied it all up, figured out what all the additional wires are, and then pinned them to these two plugs that came with the kit. So all of our feed wires and everything are coming from the proper locations. Everything's fused with the proper gauge wire and whatnot, and it goes to these two plugs here. And from these two plugs, we built our dash. And all you have to do is plug in these two plugs right here, and the whole dash is wired. It's really, really awesome. You'll notice that we cleaned up the wiring in the back and zap strapped it up really tight. We've got these foam pieces here. And this is so that when the dash sits against it, it's kind of isolated for vibration. And then to mount the dash, we made these C kind of clips here with riv nuts attached to them. And they just lock in on the back side here between these two pieces. And then the dash has two bolts that go through here, and same on the other side. This is a 2000 Mini, so it had that big dash with the big dash pads. We've removed the dash pads and cleaned up the metal here, and our dash that we've built, which you'll see in a second, goes in between the two, so you still get to see these, which is kind of a little bit more retro feel, and we like it. The other thing is that the switch panel here, because it normally has a dash pads a couple inches thick, it's on these pedestals that normally mounts way out here. So what I did is I bent and redid the mounting for it, so now it sits flush right to this. And then for the stereo system, it had this big deck which wouldn't fit or wouldn't look nice with our new dash, and actually found out that the speaker in the back, one of them was completely blown anyways. So instead we removed all the stereo system and just have a Bluetooth speaker here, which is mounted with a little locking tab on the back underside the dash. You can take it out, charge it, put it back. Right next to it we've got a 12-volt cigarette lighter plug here for running accessories. And then we pretty much cleaned everything up. We were still able to fit our vents for the defog, and the heater's all nice and cleaned up. Everything looks really tidy. So now we're pretty much ready to bolt up the dash. So we had to build this dash. We'll go take a look at it now, and I'll show you how we did that. So this is the dash. This is the back of the dash. We originally built this for a project car we were building for ourselves, the main section of it. and we decided to use it on the car because it looks so perfect. How it's made is it's a piece of plywood that we cut to shape to fit in between those two panels. We then soaked it in water and used a ratchet strap to bend it to fit the curve of the Mini, and then we let it dry like that, so that's why it has this curve. We went ahead and mounted all the gauges on the back. All the lines are routed through the back, and again terminating in only these two plugs. So once you plug these two plugs in, every gauge works. It's all, you know, as organized and neat and tidy as we can get it. And if you want to see the front, all right, and that's the dash. So pretty cool. We've got, it's wrapped in vinyl here. There's foam on the back, so it's soft touch. This material here is called Kydex, so it just kind of breaks up the look of the dash. You've got a Kydex piece here, a Kydex piece here, brushed aluminum with toggle switches. We've got all of our gauges here, so we've got water temp, oil pressure, tach, voltage, fuel, and then kind of as a laugh we put the speedo way over here for the passenger to see, because you don't care how fast you're going, you just want to scare the passenger, so that's for them to look at. And then we've got little tiny LED lights here for the turn signals. We've got one for the alternator, and then we've got one also for the check engine light, so if this one comes on, you know the check engine light's there. We've got this is a horn button. Now because he has an MPI Mini, his horn button is on the steering wheel, so we're leaving this one open right now in case he wants to add a really loud horn. So if you could have this one activating like an air horn or something. And then the rest here, we've got our speedo. It has got also an odometer and 2 trip meters in it right here. And then we've got this really cool rally light. It's flexible LED. We bought this when we were in Japan, so we're using it on this build here. You can turn it on and off here. And then we got 3 toggle switches. 2 of them right now are just left open for any accessories he wants to add in the future. And the one at the end here is used for turning on and off the setting in the computer for when you want to set the timing. So you normally jump 2 leads in the diagnostic port. We have it wired to the switch so that when you want to set your timing, you just turn that on and you can adjust the timing and turn it back off again. Kind of cool, as opposed to having to take the dash out to get to the ECU. So that's a nice little feature we added there. But it looks awesome, and I'm super excited to bolt it in. So we've got voltage, fuel, tach, oil pressure, water temp. We'll see, but it's cold now. Yeah. You can test it right at the gauge actually. So super excited. We got the dash in and everything works. It looks awesome. It's really neat and tidy. I love the fact that you can still see the blue on top and the bottom of the dash. All the gauges are right in front of you. We got these cool little LED lights here, and they all work. Everything fit great, so super stoked. And now we can fire it up and make sure that everything's good to go. Neutral. And you can see something kind of cool. I'll do it again when I turn the ignition on the speedo.
Nice sweep.
It's the little things, right? 60 pounds of oil pressure. It's cold right now, so we've got a high air idle. Voltage looking good. Fuel looking good. Water temp still cold, so that's coming up. Oh yeah. That's nice. Then we can check all the lights. So we got the turn signals. That's our alternator light, but the alternator is working now, so that's not on. And then that's our check engine light. And again, we don't have a check engine light, so that's not on. Hazards. Hey guys, so now that we've got the engine in and running and we've got the dash with all the gauges, we can monitor what's going on, we can actually go out and drive the car. However, before driving the car, because the wheels are so wide, we're gonna have to cut the flares so that we can actually turn it. So we're gonna go ahead and do that, and then we're pretty much ready to bolt on the flares and start road tuning, which is super exciting, as well as the livery and everything else with the exterior. So make sure to like and subscribe below. Stay tuned because the next episode is gonna be awesome. We're gonna be making a complete transformation of the car, and we can't wait to get at it. So make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. That sounds like timing. Hold on. ECU?
You gotta hope so.
We might need, it's not a carburetor car. We might need the computer.